to call on Deputy Tom Neville, who has 4 minutes to make a submission.
Thank you, Last John Corla. This is born out of a discussion that took place on Word FM in Limerick last year, in which a number of volunteers came together to run a radio show on the over 55s. And what was mentioned through that, something that kind of struck with me, is that a lot of times when we debate about the elderly, it's around health, which is obviously extremely warranted and welcome. But there's the other side, and it's the healthy elderly, and around employment and working, and how they can contribute more to the economy and to society through economic means. And it was also born out of my own experience as a recruitment consultant for many years, in which it was articulated to me at the time that from potential candidates at the time, that they often saw age as a barrier to a number of positions. So I just want to highlight this issue this evening here, given some of the evidence on my research that through the Positive Ageing 2016 National Indicators reported that 50 plus, the employment rate is 63%. Obviously, employment is continuing to rise, which is very welcome, and obviously very welcome over the course of the government. We're at 2 to 3% away from full employment at this stage. The 55 to 64 age group of 2.3% in formal education, the 50 plus is 8% in formal education. But of the 50 plus bracket, 7.1% saw themselves as lonely. And it also reported that in the 50 plus age group, 45% felt they were discriminated in the workforce. 45%, nearly 50%, half, felt as if they were discriminated in the workforce. And this was broken down into 2004, 33% felt they were discriminated in the workplace. These are 50 pluses. And 82% felt they were discriminated in looking for work. In 2014, this was 33% again in the workplace, and 87% looking for work. So there may not be overt discrimination, but there's obviously a feeling of covert discrimination going out there in the workforce, whether it's looking for work or in the workforce in relation to age. And it's something I think that needs to be debated and brought out on the open and discussed more. We'll see that the age 65 plus age group in Ireland is rising faster than anywhere else in the EU, and then by 2041 we'll have 1.3 to 1.4 million people over age 65, which will be a 20 to 25% of the total population. Over 80s will increase fourfold to 440,000, so this is an immediate issue. You know, loneliness in relation to the elderly can also have a negative impact, obviously, on someone's mental health and increase the risk of depression. So we need to start formulating policies and looking at policies and procedures to actually involve people and involve the elderly in the workforce more, and then grow this figure of 63%, grow the figure in education, grow the figure that's in training, and also look at intergenerational type procedures as well, in which the elderly can give back, because oftentimes you see people leaving the workforce that don't want to leave the workforce. They have to leave the workforce, and they leave with all that knowledge, all that skills, all that life experience that can be passed to the younger generation, and there needs to be kind of a formal process in that. So I'm asking that the Minister would look at exploring these initiatives, obviously opening up the debate in relation to perceived discrimination that's happening to the elderly in the workforce, and given economically the fact that our demographic is increasing in age, how we're going to combat that in the workforce to increase their economic productivity, which will formulate, give back to society, create an economy in itself, and also new opportunities. Thank you.
I would like to thank the Deputy for raising this matter. The Deputy should note that policy responsibility for equality legislation, which covers discrimination on various grounds, including age, rests with my colleague, the Taoiseach and Minister for Justice and Equality. We have robust equality legislation in Ireland, which protects people from discrimination on a range of grounds, including age. The Acts protect prospective employees at the recruitment stage. Both direct discrimination and indirect discrimination are prohibited throughout employment. Ireland's body of employment and equality legislation, including the Employment Equality Acts 1998 to 2011, protects all persons legally employed in Ireland on an employer-employee basis and provides robust safeguards for employees. Under the terms of the Workplace Relations Act 2015, the Workplace Relations Commission, that is, the WRC, is mandated to mediate and to adjudicate on cases taken by complainants to enforce their rights under employment, equality and industrial relations legislation. I should also mention that the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, which is under the aegis of the Minister for Justice and Equality, can provide advice and assistance to individuals who consider that they have been discriminated against, including on the age ground, and they can also provide practical assistance and advice on how to take a claim under the Employment Equality Acts. In relation to training and upskilling in the context of employment, the Department of Education and its Further Education and Training Authority, SOLAS, aims to ensure that further education and training is inclusive and recognises that all citizens have the potential to develop their skill sets if afforded the opportunity and supports to do so. Furthermore, the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform produced a report in August this year entitled Fuller Working Lives, which identifies a set of framework principles to underpin policy in this area and has made various recommendations which will be implemented by the relevant departments. My department has asked the WRC to prepare a draft code of practice to set out best industrial relations practice in managing the engagement between employers and employees in the run-up to retirement.
Deputy, 2 minutes for.
Thank you, Laskin Cora, and I'd like to thank the Minister for her answer, and just to continue in stating that, in my opinion, there needs to be a cultural shift in relation to employing people with, more senior citizens or people with experience that have to leave the workforce. There is sometimes where contracts are not renewed at the age of 65 and people have to wait for pensions to 66, and what are they going to do for that year? We need to promote positive perception, a positive image of the aged for the workforce. I do welcome the Minister's answer in relation to it. As I said, as was pointed out in the National Positive Ageing Strategy, you've the likes of flexible retirement arrangements, work environment that is adapted to the needs of all generations, continuous education and training, continuous promotion, as I said, of positive images of older people, and show that they can contribute in relation to this. But I do think that there is an avenue there in which we can facilitate people of great experience who have even left the workforce and may not be able to contribute directly to the workforce, but may be able to contribute through training and handing over that experience to younger generations that would be able to compete. And this is about, giving people that better competitive advantage within the economy that could compete for higher positions, given their training at university or their initial jobs, but also that these people could hand over or disseminate some of their life experience to these younger people and enhance that competitiveness. And that's what we're looking for here in our growing economy. But I welcome the Minister's answer, and obviously again reiterate that this is a positive move. This is a positive issue that has arisen because of our aging population, and we're living longer, and obviously the economy contributes to improve by obviously the policies that have been implemented by the government, and I'd just like to see more in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy, I welcome this debate, and I did hear you very clearly when you talked about over 50s, where 45% felt discriminated, and actually a worse statistic was where 82% in one of your help me there, reports, and 87% were looking for work. And you mentioned the word covert, and I've heard that myself. We do need, as a society, to recognise the valuable contribution that our mature students, mature citizens, and their depth of experience. And in January 2016, the Government did agree to the establishment of a working group to consider policy around retirement age. the establishment of the group came in light of the fact that people are now living longer, more active and healthier lives. Ireland should be a society that explores the opportunities associated with longer and fuller working lives. And to that end, a shift in cultural norms around retirement age is needed on all sides. In a positive ageing environment, workers should, to the greatest extent possible, be facilitated with the option to work beyond normal retirement age. The report recognised the fact that appropriate training and other supports for older workers may be needed to enable them to remain active participants in the labour market. The state employers and workers themselves have responsibilities in this area. The group has identified a set of framework principles and made a set of recommendations. And as a follow-on to this work, my department has asked the WRC to prepare that draft code of practice that I spoke about earlier.
Thank you, Minister. We now move to the fourth topic. Ellen Collin, Deputy